Hello, my dears. My name is Joanna, and I welcome you to the Johanna Draconis, the Deconstruction of CPTSD podcast. In this episode, we will talk about the phases of the healing waves and when it doesn't really apply. The healing wave is the up and down that mark our healing path. Some waves are huge, some are really small. It is key to learn how to ride them to speed up the healing process. We talked about parts of it before, but now we go through it step by step, as it can be very confusing if you don't know why things are happening or why they are happening the way they are happening. Let us first get into what a healing wave is. Did you ever look at a weather chart? The same on a scale also applies here. On the big scale you have the temperature over the year. In zones with 4 seasons, that should be a perfect up and down, from summer to winter. On the medium scale, you see that there are hotter times in spring or cooler ones. Simple weak up and downs. Then on a small scale, we have the up and down of day and night. So for our example, our healing path is the big scale, our recent healing phase is the medium scale, and our daily situation is the small scale. You might have better or worse days, but it all usually follows more or less the same formula. So we first go step by step of the healing wave, then when it doesn't apply, and why it sometimes seems it doesn't end. First, we start when you are feeling good and the brain has enough energy to start this process. Yes, this is good, as it needs to be done. You need to be in a state of somewhat stability and enough energy. Usually what the brain decides to handle is caused by a cue, or it haven't gotten the brain's attention lately. But, as far as I know, it can't be directly controlled. For our box example, that is opening the box, and for our season example, this is summer. Now what comes next is the fall or decline of our well-being. We will show symptoms or our symptoms get worse, depending on your situation. Insomnia, eating disorder, depression, disassociation, and so on. Everything gets worse and worse. No matter if it's a void inside of you that makes everything numb, or the chest pain and swell of emotions that make you feel like you're being ripped apart. Generally, it is usually a soft floating down, that you don't really notice it. You just suddenly notice that things have gotten worse, and most likely have no idea what started it all. There's just too much of a delay. We talked about this phase in greater deal in episode 54 about why we feel worse when we're getting better. In short, your body is directing everything it has to deal and be done with the issue at hand. In our box example, we are inspecting and dealing with the box we opened. The season we're in now is fall or autumn. The descent continues until we hit absolute rock bottom. We are now stretched to the absolute maximum what we can endure. Literally every wound we have is redirected to solving the issue. Usually this means we are not capable of doing anything. Like literally. Sometimes that means being reduced to just stare at the wall and suffer. Sound, visuals, smells, everything can be now too much. This is the point to just try to relax and do as little as possible. First, so that you don't waste energy, and secondly, so this goes over faster, and thirdly, that it goes over more smoothly. This is clearly the worst phase. In our example, this is the brain sorting what is in the box, what is needed and what not, and where to put the content. The season is clearly winter. But once the knot is loosened, we rise. It almost feels like a wave shooting up to break the surface. Suddenly we get energy and all the colors return and we can do stuff again and everything seems possible. Getting healed appears to be just around the corner. Usually we use time to do all the work that piled up during the last 2 phases. It is wise not to go too overboard with this, otherwise you get a crash. I also recommend using the time not just to work, but to gather positive energy in form of good memories, getting things done for yourself, and have some quality time with maybe some friends. For example, this is repacking the box in a new box that is now correctly placed. There is a feeling of having succeeded in a job well done. The season we are in now is spring. In the end, you should be now at a general higher level that you were before that process started, climbing higher and higher up the mountain until you reach your goal. So the last point only applies if it was a healing wave. It doesn't apply if this whole process was caused by a trigger and your brain being unable to target or dissect a trigger. Then it is the other way around. After you succeeded, you will be a bit lower overall than you were before, or even a lot if you were traumatized again. I would refer to it as recovery wave, and I will get into that another time in full. For now, I just wanted to clarify the difference between these two. Then we have sometimes the situation where it doesn't seem to end. Sometimes you can trigger another wave while you are in a wave, which is of course something horrible that shouldn't happen but does, which means you have to deal with two waves at a time that won't end well, especially if you were triggered or traumatized and will be just lower at the end result, which you of course can recover from. But that is why it is so important to be careful with triggers or new trauma. So sometimes it is just that you are so low that even spring feels barely energetic at all. It will just feel like a small relief. Other times the healing wave is just big and can take multiple weeks to take place. It really depends, but with experience you can learn to read the situation, ride the waves, and make the best out of it. That was it for today's episode. I know this whole situation is very confusing, scary, and exhausting. I hope I managed to give some clarity and tools to deal with it a bit better. Of course, if you have any questions or feedback and the like, please let me know at contactme@johannatakonis.com. More information and transcript you can find as usually under johannatakonis.com/podcast. Information regarding therapy you can find under johannatakonis.com/therapy, and links are in the description. I hope to see you next time. Watch yourselves and have a wonderful time.